Arrest. An arrest occurs when police take an individual into custody for purposes of criminal prosecution or interrogation. Probable cause is always required for any valid arrest. Probable cause is trustworthy facts or knowledge sufficient for a reasonable person to believe that the suspect has committed or is planning to commit a crime. Warrants are rarely required for arrest. Police generally do not need a warrant before arresting a person in a public place. Exception: non-emergency home arrests require a warrant and reasonable belief suspect is at home. Police must have an arrest warrant to arrest an individual in their home. Police may only enter the home if they have reason to believe the suspect is in the home. Search warrant is required for police to execute an arrest of a suspect in a third party's home. A warrant is not required for an emergency arrest occurring in the arrestee's home. Detentions: a governmental seizure of a person that is less than full custodial arrest. Common government detentions is 1, stop and frisk. This is the Terry type, requires reasonable suspicion. 2, an automobile stop, requires reasonable suspicion. 3, a station house detention, probable cause required to compel a person to enter a government location for fingerprinting and questioning. 4, detention to obtain a search warrant, requires probable cause. If police have probable cause to believe a suspect has contraband hidden in her home, they may prevent her from entering her home for a reasonable time while they obtain a search warrant. Purpose must be to prevent destruction of evidence. 5, detention of occupants of a premises. If police have a valid warrant to search a premises, they may detain occupants for the duration of the proper search. Automobile stops and police checkpoints. An automobile stop is a reasonable suspicion required. To stop and pull over a vehicle, police must have reasonable suspicion that a law has been violated. Pretextual stops are for ulterior motive for a stop is okay if police have reasonable suspicion of any legal violation. Attempting searches. Police may search passengers and passenger compartment, but not the trunk, if officer reasonably believes weapons may be present. Police can order passengers out of the vehicle. Entire car may be searched if probable cause arises pursuant to the automobile search exception. Note: automobiles may be searched, may also be searched incident to a lawful arrest. Police checkpoints must relate to vehicle-specific purpose. Requirement: a police checkpoint or roadblock that stops cars without individualized suspicion, such as a DUI checkpoint, must 1, stop cars using a neutral, articulatable standard, every fourth car, and 2, serve purposes related to automobiles and their mobility. DUI checkpoints relate to road safety, but drug checkpoints are insufficiently related to driving and thus are unconstitutional. Determining the validity of a search or seizure. Government searches and seizures of evidence must be reasonable under the Fourth Amendment, which require a valid search warrant unless one of the 6 exceptions applies. The first is determining the reasonableness of the search and seizure. 1, is there government conduct constituting a search or seizure? Fourth Amendment only applies to government conduct. Direct or authorized does not protect against private conduct. Authorized conduct, private persons acting in direction of the government agents, constitutes government conduct. 2, does defendant have standing? Defendant must have reasonable expectation of privacy in the thing or place being searched. 4. Is there a valid warrant? A valid search warrant? 4. Is there no valid search warrant? Was there a valid exception to the search warrant requirement? Exceptions to the search warrant requirement are as follows. 1. Search incident to arrest. 2. Plain view search. 3. Automobile search. 4. Valid consent to search. 5. Exigent circumstances. And 6. The stop and frisk. Reasonable expectation of privacy. Fourth Amendment only applies if a person has a reasonable expectation of privacy regarding the thing or place searched and or item seized. Standing to challenge a government search requires a reasonable expectation of privacy. This is determined by the totality of the circumstances. There's no reasonable expectation of privacy for inherently public things, such as handwriting, voice, location, odors, public records, things viewable from a public space, bank account records, smells of luggage, areas outside the curtilage are protected by the Fourth Amendment. Areas outside one's home and outbuildings are subject to police search and seizure. Garbage placed on the street. Automatic standing. Reasonable expectation of privacy always exists if defendant A owns, has rights to possess, or lives in the premises to be searched, or B is an overnight guest of the premises to be searched. Requirements for a valid search warrant. Unless an exception applies, government must have properly executed warrants to conduct a search. Requirements for a valid warrant. 1. Based on probable cause. Usually a police affidavit demonstrating probable cause that the search or seizure will produce evidence. Affidavits must contain facts showing probable cause. May include information from anonymous sources. If 1, there was a false statement, 2, offense recklessly included a false statement, was material to finding probable cause, then warrant is invalid. 2, premises on its face. So warrant must describe with reasonable precision the place to be searched and or items to be seized. 3, issued by a neutral and detached magistrate. The good faith exception is the exclusionary rule does not apply if police act in good faith on an invalid search warrant. Exceptions to good faith reliance. Police cannot rely on a defective warrant obtained in good faith if A, the affidavit completely lacks probable cause, so there's no reasonable police officer would have relied on it. B, warrant is defective on its face. C, police or government official lied or misled magistrate. Or D, magistrate has wholly abandoned her judicial role. Execution of search warrants. Timing. Search warrants must be executed without unreasonable delay after it is issued. Knock and announce requirement. Police must knock and announce their purpose, then wait a reasonable time for admittance before entering on their own accord. Exception. Knock and announce is not required if officers have reasonable suspicion that announcing their presence would be dangerous, futile, or would inhibit the investigation. Scope of search. Limited to what is reasonably necessary to discover items described in the warrant. Police can detain people found on the search premises but police cannot search detained persons unless they are specifically named in the warrant or a valid warrantless search exception exists.